This is BBC Radio 4. Now, the best DJ you've never heard. Martin Bashir profiles the often controversial and shocking American DJ Howard Stern. We hear why he's caused so much outrage and how he defends accusations of obscenity in his radio shows.
Listeners of Radio 4, I want to introduce you to a talk show host.
Oh, man! Whoa, that's great! I need a doctor.
Who's on air 5 hours every day.
What a show.
I love it.
Who's attracted more fans than any other broadcaster on the planet.
Howard! 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 Howard!
And who's also received a record number of fines for obscenity, sexual lewdness, and religious defamation.
I pray for Howard Stern. I pray that he might come to his senses.
And for his troubles, he earns no less than $100 million a year.
It was widely reported that Sirius had given him a contract for $500 million over 5 years.
Hi, I'm Howard Stern. Now, if that name doesn't mean anything to you, it's because you're in Britain. And we only give you people information as and when we think you need it.
I'm Martin Bashir, and this is the best DJ that you've never heard.
Good morning, everybody. Welcome to the show. We are Sirius Satellite Radio, Howard 100, Howard 101, Thursday. Hey now. Hey now to you.
Hey now.
Hey now.
Hey now.
Hey now.
Howard Stern is a multimedia phenomenon. Now in his 50s, but still looking like a rock star, he's done almost everything in his 30-year career. From publishing a best-selling autobiography to starring in a Hollywood movie called Private Parts. But the one constant is his daily audience in front of the microphone.
Get involved, my wife will kill me, you know what I mean?
Yes, I
She
can.
listens to the show and says, did you really spank those girls? Did you touch them? You know what I mean?
The show is difficult to define. It's often comedic, but always based on real events.
Donald Trump is on the phone.
I'm just saying Iraq, we should have never been in there in the first place. Bush is the worst president in the history of the United States.
Absolutely.
He's a total disaster.
That's
he
right.
doesn't know what he's doing.
Yep.
I really don't think he has much of an IQ. I can't imagine he has any IQ at all. He's the worst president in the history of the United States. He's a disaster.
You're absolutely 100% right.
It's as sharp as a news program, as blunt as the most opinionated columnist, and no one is off limits. From the president to Paris Hilton, celebrities are often taken to the cleaners.
All right, Heather Mills, who married Paul McCartney.
Now she's upset with the tabloid stories about her and says they've made her suicidal.
Who is she? No one heard of her. She married Paul McCartney. She didn't write any songs. She's entitled to very little.
I've had worse press than a paedophile or a murderer, and I've done nothing but charity for 20 years.
Why?
Wow.
Everyone has jumped on the bandwagon. That,
You're a horrible human being, that's why.
4,400 abusive
Because
articles.
you won't shut
Look
up.
what they're doing. Persecute.
Shut up, you
You
annoying
live a
witch.
luxurious life. Stay home.
Yeah, stay home and stop doing interviews then.
Would you consider leaving the country? Or I would live in America in 2 seconds.
But we don't want you.
David Hinckley of the New York Daily News has been following Howard Stern from the start of his career.
Howard Stern does a comedy show on the radio, essentially. It's a comedy show which is built partly on popular culture, current events, and partly on the cumulative story of an ongoing cast of characters of himself, his radio posse, and a number of his eccentric listeners that he's accumulated over the years.
Give it to me, dude.
We're back with the new Mr. Howard Stern.
All right, very good. And the Bee Gees are here. Well, we ought to get the Bee Gees in here already. Hey, Bee Gees. Hi, Howard. What's happening? All right, Bee Gees.
He started at small stations, and he was a top 40 disc jockey, and he hit big in New York in 1985. He had already been moving away from music and toward more of a talk show, raunchy comedy, that sort of thing. When people talked about quote-unquote shock jocks on the radio, people who were saying outrageous things on the radio, Howard Stern became sort of a synonym for that.
You mean your present wife will bring in women into the bedroom?
Yeah, she's gay. Howard, we have
She
a
is gay?
gay?
What is she? Your wife now is gay?
Absolutely.
You're not kidding me, though.
Proud of it, yeah.
Is that right, Barry?
What do you mean, is that right, Barry? What are you bringing me into this? I have a wonderful time. I have a wonderful relationship.
Really?
Yeah.
Let me get this straight. Your present wife.
Mind-blowing.
Present wife is
Because
gay.
I like, let me tell you something.
Oh, my.
Man, she's smart. You see, now that interests me.
Absolutely.
Now that I understand. Now that's rock star stuff.
happy, yeah.
And you like going home to her? I mean, when you go home to her, she acts like a traditional wife, except there's always another girl hanging around.
Yeah.
Oh.
And she's in a steady relationship.
And you're
he
allowed
says.
to watch if they have...
Absolutely.
Oh.
Absolutely.
So now wait a minute. When you go home, is there another woman living
Yes.
there all the time?
Yes.
Oh my.
Fabulous.
Yeah.
30-year-old young women, 36, 24, 36,
Yeah.
big-breasted?
Absolutely.
Oh, yeah.
It gets better, Howard.
It just
gets
doesn't stop.
better.
Oh.
I call it the perfect relationship.
I
Howard.
call that more than perfect. I only wish my wife would bring a girl into the relationship.
Yeah.
Like I was trying to tell my wife the other night. I was trying to say, hey, listen, who knew I'd be, you know, there was no indication that I had any talent ever. And the idea that I'd become this popular, it's a fluke. I recognize that. I said, but now look at all these women who want me. As ugly as I'm like a billy goat. I'm so ugly, but look at that. Oh, really?
In fact, I think when the light hits you in a certain way, you're almost attractive.
You know you're a charming man? All right, so anyway, the point is, I can see why Barbra Streisand liked you.
Absolutely.
So the point is, I've often said to my wife, you know, gee, wouldn't it be nice to bring another girl into the bedroom? But she won't hear of it. Now, the Bee Gees have a new album, but who cares? Let's get back to the action.
When I arrived in New York in November 2005, I kept seeing the unmistakable 6'5", slim, bespectacled broadcaster on the Upper West Side of Manhattan. Turns out he lives across the street from my office at ABC News.
From the global resources of ABC News, with Terry Moran in Washington, Martin Bashir and Cynthia McFadden in New York City, this is Nightline.
As I started a new career in American television, so he was about to sign a new contract with Sirius Satellite Radio. But that's where the similarities come to an end. His contract reportedly contained two astonishing elements. His basic salary over 5 years would be $500 million. And he was also granted $225 million in stock.
Tom Cruise, perhaps, if he made 3 movies a year, would be making more money than Howard Stern. But if Tom Cruise only made 1 movie a year, he would not be making more money than Howard Stern. And this is extraordinary because radio is traditionally not one of the highest paid parts of the entertainment pie here. It's a pretty high profile, but it's not that lucrative. But Stern has made it that lucrative. And it's through his marketing genius, really. He's made himself into a product and a brand that has become incredibly lucrative.
Even late-night TV hosts like David Letterman and Jay Leno can get nowhere near Howard Stern's annual income. And apparently, it all makes financial sense to Howard.
I don't think it's too much to ask someone for 43 cents a day. We're making a bond with the audience. We're saying, okay, what is the amount of money you're willing to pay if we gave you everything you need to hear? 43 cents a day. You'll go to a video store and you will buy a DVD put out by the movie industry for $20, watch it once. But here we're saying to you, give us 43 cents a day and we'll give you the world.
Welcome to Howard Stern's Burp or Fart Game, where 3 lovely but flat-chested young women are competing for the chance to win breast implants.
So his listeners pay almost $13 a month to tune in, and they get a lot of Howard for their money. 2 dedicated Howard channels, the daily 5-hour radio show, a 1-hour review show about the show, spin-off shows featuring his guests, sidekicks and fans, even a weekly roundtable discussion between his work experience interns. And there's also a dedicated Howard Stern news channel. Their slogan, all Howard, all the time.
A BBC radio documentary about Howard? A published report out of the UK claiming Howard's already been interviewed by Martin Bashir, reportedly for a show called The Best DJ You've Never Heard. The alleged documentary said to be set for air on BBC Radio 4 in December.
Is that true?
It was a good interview. I mean, he was good. I liked the guy. I remember feeling like he was pretty thorough and it was interesting. I actually liked Martin Bashir.
Howard 100 News. If it's news to you, it's news to us.
And listen to Howard Stern at work anytime, online. For details, go to Sirius.com. Another Howard 100 News brief at the top of the hour, or as close as we can get.
Howard 100.
Having heard about his iconic status and unimaginable salary, I was given the chance to tour his studio and meet the man himself.
Martin, spin the wheel of sex. And as you spin it, let's see, we would have to squirt mayonnaise on you, which is pretty tank.
I did not get covered in mayonnaise, but I was taken aback by Stern in person. For all the jokes about drug-addicted prostitutes, drunks and gonorrhea, Howard Stern is personally disciplined, thoughtful about the process of broadcasting, and one of the hardest-working journalists in the city of New York. And he sees what he does as a form of truth-telling.
All right, Howard, we have a reporter from England.
It's about time we got someone here from the international press. And what is the name of this newspaper?
The Independent newspaper. We're a quality newspaper like the New York Times.
You know what quality means. 4 people read it. All right.
Can you define for us what you believe indecent would be?
I think there are a lot of things in this country that are indecent. I think the war going on in Iraq right now is not fair to the guys serving over there. That we might have gotten in there on a lie, that we were lied to, I find that indecent. When the church covers up that a priest is molesting boys and they just move them to another parish, that's indecent. That's indecent to me.
Right, but when it comes to bodily functions and language, you don't think anything's indecent?
Compared to what I just mentioned, no. Because we all go to the bathroom. These fart noises I play are freedom, because we all fart. Big deal.
So if that's his driving purpose, what about those who surround him on air and in the studio? Jackie the Joke Man Martling was Stern's sidekick for 15 years, up until 2001.
The way we did it, we hardly had any prep. Like Howard would just start talking in the morning, and he'd talk for 5 hours. People say, how could he talk for 4 hours? And I'd be like, that's not the problem. The problem is getting him to shut up at 10 o'clock, because he'd go on. He'd go on, and he'd just start talking, and if I thought of something funny, I'd write it down, or if I had a suggestion for this or that, and I'd just put it there, and he'd either include it or ignore it or change it.
The team reached their greatest fame and notoriety during the 1990s, when the Howard Stern Show pulled in an estimated 18 million listeners every day.
Howard had the #1 movie in the country in like 1997 or 98 for a week. And that was big. That was really huge. You know, we went to L.A. and we were the toast of town. I didn't have any money when I started. All of a sudden, 15 years later, the people know who I am, and I'm a millionaire. And when did this happen? You know, I mean, Howard was always he was famous when he got to New York. But when the other guys on the radio show are famous, too, it was pretty big, you know what I mean?
Stern's longest-serving lieutenant is the former military captain and nurse, Robin Quivers. She's been the show's newsreader since 1981. She's also black.
Me and Gary and Ranzo got together yesterday.
Yeah.
And the whole conversation was Robin ever in love with you? And I said yes. And Gary said yes.
Oh, please.
And I said,
what
Robin,
in the hell is wrong
Robin's
with you
into this
people?
whole honesty thing, but she won't admit it. Yeah. Would you guys leave the room for a second? Leave the room. I want to talk to Robin privately.
Let me say to you right now.
No, let the guys leave.
If your wife dropped dead today, I would assist you in finding another woman, because it certainly, I would not lobby for that position.
All right, all the guys are gone now. You don't have to keep up your front. You don't have to act
and there's
tough.
nobody listening.
David Hinckley.
I think Robin Quivers is enormously important to the Stern Show. Some people sort of cynically suggest that she's just there as his cover. You know, the fact that there's a black woman on the show, it means that he can say all kinds of things, and he isn't criticized for just being a white guy. But I think Robin is far more important than that to the show.
She's very important. People say, oh, anybody could do what she's doing. That's not true. She's smart, funny. She knows when to talk. She knows when not to talk. She knows when to pause. Her role, the role of a straight man, if she does it well, it's like the editor of a film. The better she does her job, the less intrusive she is, the less you notice it.
But even as his audience grew larger than any other FM radio show in America, there were plenty of individuals who wanted to stop the party. His #1 enemy became the Federal Communications Commission, the body charged with regulating America's airwaves. Jackie Martling again.
Was the show targeted by the FCC? Absolutely. You know, just like a fire would be targeted by the fire department, you know. Yeah, they were making an example of him because it was the funniest and the best and everybody was listening to it. But to this day, the whole FCC thing is so ludicrous. Telling adults they can't talk like adults and telling people what they can listen to. If you don't like what you're listening to on the radio, turn the channel. I mean, it's so simple, it's ridiculous. You know, well, but we have kids. Well, then turn the channel quicker.
Howard Stern's programs have received more financial penalties from the FCC than any other in history, in excess of $7 million. One of his long-term enemies is Florida attorney Jack Thompson.
Howard Stern is a talented man. He has a fairly keen comedic sense. His primary agenda is to make as much money as possible by being as outrageous as possible, and he's been very successful in that.
Thompson, who describes himself as a conservative Christian activist, has steadfastly campaigned against Stern, even calling for him to be arrested on charges of indecency in 2001.
Despite the fact that in the United States, federal law says that if you broadcast what we call indecent material on through-the-air broadcast, then you have committed a crime. And he should have been prosecuted personally and criminally for what he did, and that would have involved jail time, and he wouldn't have been able to do his show from a jail cell, obviously. When he got into his female amputee beauty pageants and describing, you know, how they would do certain things, I'm not even going to clinically describe what he would describe, but they've been subjects of complaints to the FCC by me and others. You know, it wasn't funny. It was depraved. Some people couldn't stop listening to it, just like they can't turn away from a car accident. There is a certain appeal there, and it's a human nature thing to want to listen to the depravity.
Then came 9/11. As terrorists shattered the confidence of every American citizen, broadcasters were suddenly forced to provide non-stop coverage of the most horrific event in the history of modern America. And perhaps surprising to some, Howard Stern rose to the challenge.
Hey, I should make a, I don't mean to interrupt the fun, but this is a breaking news story, a serious news story.
What?
A plane has crashed, hold it, into the World Trade Center.
You're kidding!
The World Trade Center is on fire.
Dude, that's hot. Oh my God! I got to go out on my roof. This is incredible. The whole thing is on fire.
Yeah.
You're right.
I mean, not a little fire.
No, it's huge.
Oh, it's huge.
Yeah.
If a plane hits a building.
Very soon after the planes hit the towers here, Howard's show changed almost immediately from talking about cup sizes of Playboy bunnies or whatever his topic of that morning was to this attack. He took a very serious tone to it. He didn't try to find a way to crack wise about it.
A second plane just crashed into one of my...
Stop it!
A second plane.
Wait a minute! There are two buildings, and that is lower.
So it's a terrorist attack, isn't it?
That's what they're saying.
It's got to be.
Somebody just called in
Oh,
with that.
my goodness.
Oh, no.
A second plane might have crashed, and a second building is on fire.
Just 16 minutes after he'd heard that a plane had hit the tower, and while other more revered networks were wondering whether this was just a tragic air accident, Howard Stern pointed the finger at Osama bin Laden.
Oh, my God.
We're under attack.
Going into buildings. Right, we got to go bomb everything over there now.
We got to bomb the hell out of them. I know who it is.
That's crazy.
Where's Opie bin Laden or whatever his name is?
We never declared war on.
They tried to get bin Laden at 3 different places. Remember that?
Oh, come on. We can't get bin Laden. Then there's something wrong in this world.
He was saying, you know what we got to do about this? We got to just turn the Mideast into a parking lot. That's the solution here. You know, these people are after us. We got to get them first. Let's just wipe them out. It's not pretty. It's not anything people are proud of, but it's true. A lot of people were thinking that. And in a sense, that is exactly what Howard's show is about. Howard's show is about saying what people think, but ordinarily won't say.
The moment confirmed the comprehensive nature of Howard Stern's genius. He could be as crude as they come, but he could also interpret a terrorist attack in words that gave comfort and hope to those living in a city under attack. It also meant that when 2 satellite subscription radio services started to prepare their schedules, the one person they both wanted was Howard Stern. And, coincidentally, that's exactly what Stern's enemies wanted too. Jack Thompson again.
Stern has kind of made himself, in some ways, in American radios, irrelevant. Part of the cachet of the show was how far is he going to go today, and will the feds maybe nail him for what he does? Now that he's in a venue that's a paid-for medium and in which there is no regulation as to indecency, he's somewhat out of the public's mind now more, but as a result of the economics of satellite radio making a heck of a lot of money.
Howard Stern is delighted too, and not just for the obvious financial reasons.
Number one, I get to do what I want. Number two, it's been announced that 3.3 million subscribers, before we even hit the air, joined. I'm making more money. I can't imagine what the negative is, and I don't see how I lose. They feel like they forced me off terrestrial radio, but they didn't even do that.
So now Stern cannot be fined or shut down by the FCC because satellite radio is beyond their regulation. The subscriptions purchased by adult listeners mean he can curse as much as he wants, and he's still keen to explain that there's method in what many see as madness and vulgarity.
My show has been so shut down by the government, by the religious right, by outside forces. I stopped doing half my material. I think, first of all, I understand the strength of my show, I think, better than anyone. And what it really is honesty. When a nude woman walked into my studio, I said to her, what are you doing? Why are you doing this? What kind of woman walks in and has the need to show her naked body to me? What's wrong with you? I'm fascinated by outrageous behavior.
That's been your greatest economic achievement, isn't it? Because the more obscene you become, the greater the expectation for the audience, and you just keep delivering, and the more, and that's what you've actually progressed to.
Well, I would correct you. I don't think I ever was obscene. Honest to God, I don't think we ever dealt with obscenity. The government.
Do you think observing people defecate is obscene?
No, I don't. And I'll tell you what. And by the way, I like how you say defecate.
Thank you.
I say defecate. You say defecate. I say defecate. Let's throw the whole thing, or whatever. But anyway, no, I don't. I have no problem with body functions. We all defecate. We all do this. I don't get the bugaboo about it. But what's fascinating is the guy who will defecate in his studio.
But here's the contrast. Howard Stern doesn't drink.
I drink.
You do drink a
Oh,
little?
sure.
How
I
much
drink
do you-
wine.
Okay.
I
So you
drink
drink a little?
A little
Moderately?
bit. A little bit. Oh, very moderate.
You don't smoke?
I do not smoke.
You go to bed by 8 p.m. most evenings?
Yes, I do.
You engage in counseling and self-realization therapy regularly?
I go to a psychiatrist.
So you do all of that, yet you encourage your listeners to do certain things that perhaps you don't do. In a way, some people might suggest that you're living vicariously through your audience. In fact, some people have said the audience live through you, but maybe it's the opposite. Maybe you're living through them.
I think that's perfectly legitimate, what you're saying.
You
I
do?
love,
You agree
yes,
with that?
I love to view outrageous behavior. But outrageous behavior doesn't become me. I'm not comfortable with it. I'm more comfortable being the voyeur and observing it and trying to understand it. I'm like an anthropologist.
The government says clean up your act, and we say never. We're going to a whole new universe. We can laugh, we can play, we can do whatever the F we want, because we're the last of a dying breed.
You are the most fined broadcaster in the history of the FCC.
I think more than anything in my career, I hold that up as a badge of honor. I am so proud of that. The first fines, $6,000, was because a guy came into my studio and played the piano with his Now, it's on the radio. It's theater of the mind. Who even knew if the guy was really playing the... What about that would cause the government to fine someone $6,000?
So, given the view of the FCC about you and your show, what does that tell you about the state of modern morality?
I cannot believe the hypocrisy. Sex is the thing that has made me infamous. Sex. The religious right that attacks me, you know, that really is responsible for the fines. I don't get a lot of complaints about my show. What these guys do is they sit home on their computers and they file thousands of complaints. One guy, sometimes two guys. That's it. You look at the religious right in this country, and I suggest to you they're no different than the Taliban. We're in real danger in this country of being taken over as a religious country. Exactly what we're fighting in a lot of this war. Fanaticism. My show's a lightning rod to bring these people out of the woodwork. I've been set up as the poster boy. I am the poster boy for all of this stuff.
What about levels of crudeness? Do you have any limits?
I don't necessarily like crudeness. I like funny.
For example,
if you're comparing my show to something crude, it would have to be personally funny to me.
Would you have a segment on your show called Chat to Your Rapist?
Chat to Your Rapist? Did you dream that up?
Well, I'm putting it to you. Would you do that?
I want to know if you'll write for my show. I've never heard such a brilliant idea. Chat to Your Rapist. I have a show called Chat to Your Rapist. Sure, yeah, I would do that.
What you've just
Wouldn't you?
What you've just illustrated is the fundamental truth about Howard Stern, and that is that the FCC you've rejected because you don't accept the hypocrisy, as you put it, of their position, but actually the final arbiter of taste and truth and rules is you.
Yeah, and I think the show has a moral message. I think that this show, this radio show, has actually been responsible for higher moral ground. Now, you might laugh at me for saying that, but there's a backbone to this show. I think the people who listen to me know that there are rules, that I hold myself to a higher morality than most people. They know I don't cheat on my partner.
Really?
Yeah, I tell them. I tell them that's not the way to live,
you see,
in my opinion.
But let me just put to here's a fundamental problem. You say that you have a very clear sense of what's right and what's wrong, the rules, as you put it, and your
For me.
audience, what's for you. But then there's another broadcaster who takes a different view, and what you end up with is a moral relativism where everybody decides what's right. Do you see why, according to some people, there's a need for an objective organization like the FCC to overrule that kind of moral relativism?
Your question is fundamentally wrong. It's not a question of the broadcaster who decides what's morally right. It's putting the personal responsibility on the guest. They decide. Wait a second. Hold it. You're absolutely wrong. I don't say, you take your clothes off now and show me your genitals. If you walk into my studio and say, I want to do this, I want to participate in it, I have no moral judgment of that. I think that's great. I think, wow, you're liberal, liberated, and free. I think it's kind of cool. I can't do it. It's not my morality, but I'll certainly interview you about it.
I mean, I suppose some people would say that if you ceased to do things that are provocative, your career would be finished.
People are predicting my failure for 20 years now. The show won't fail as long as I'm honest. You know, come clean, warts and all. I've wished cancer on people. That's not a nice thing to do.
No.
But at least I was honest about it. And what I was saying is, I wish you dead. And we've all done that. And if you say you haven't, you're not being honest with yourself.
It's kind of saying the unsayable.
Saying the unsayable, and I think that makes our society healthier. And I know there's some people that's a hard thing to understand. But by saying the unsayable, by opening up, then you can analyze it. Then you can judge it. I don't mind being judged. I said Nazi Germany should have had a Howard Stern show because then somebody would have pointed out that Hitler was an ass. It's dangerous to shut people like me up.
He's uncensored.
Greatest campaign ever launched.
Unrestricted.
Well, hell yeah.
Unstoppable.
No holds barred.
The Howard Stern Show. Now, the Howard Stern Show ends.
The Best DJ You've Never Heard was presented by Martin Bashir and produced by Simon Cross. The programme was a USP content production for BBC Radio 4.